Welcome to Midnight History, where forgotten truths of the past come to life. The story of the Green Children of Woolpit is one that has baffled historians and folklorists for centuries. It's a tale that sounds like something straight out of fairy tale. Yet it's an account that was recorded by two different chroniclers in the 12th century, detailing an event that was said to have truly happened. Imagine, if you will, a crisp autumn day in the 12th century English village of Woolpit. The villagers go about their daily lives, the rhythm of their work punctuated by the sound of livestock and the quiet chatter of their neighbors. Suddenly, their routine is shattered. Two small figures, a boy and a girl, emerge from a deep wolf pit, a trench dug to trap wolves. But these aren't just any children. They're unlike anything the villagers have ever seen before. Their skin is a striking, vivid green. Their clothes are made of a fabric no one recognizes. They speak a language no one understands, their voices filled with fear and confusion. The villagers, a mix of shock and suspicion on their faces, take the children in. They try to feed them, but the children refuse all food except for raw broad beans. This is the central mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit. Where did they come from? Why was their skin green? Was this a miracle, a bizarre medical case, or perhaps a glimpse into a forgotten truth? Was this event a piece of folklore, passed down and embellished over time, or was it a genuine, inexplicable event that actually happened? Over the next several minutes, we'll dive into the details of this peculiar story, examine the historical accounts, the various theories that have been proposed, and what we might be able to glean from the strange and enduring mystery. Once again, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so we have more motivation to produce better quality products. Woolpit, a small village tucked in the heart of Suffolk, England, in the 12th century, was a place that held more than its fair share of mysteries and folklore. Nestled deep in the rolling hills of the English countryside, it was a land of contrast and conflict, where the echoes of the Norman conquest still lingered and the struggles of dynastic wars affected every aspect of life. Here, in this sleepy, seemingly innocent corner of England, the world was shaped by forces both political and supernatural, weaving together a tapestry of tension and superstition that pervaded the very air. It was a time of transition, a century in which the dust of conquest had not quite settled, and the future of the kingdom seemed uncertain. The Norman rule, though firmly established in the wake of William the Conqueror's invasion in 1066, was still something of a distant, foreign presence for many in the countryside. The Norman lords who ruled over vast stretches of land often found themselves in conflict with the local Saxon populace, a tension that manifests itself not only in battles but in the very structure of the feudal system. A hierarchical, rigid structure where land was granted by a lord to vassals in exchange for loyalty and service. The feudal system defined much of life in the 12th century. This was a society marked by stark divisions, those who held land and those who worked it, those who were free, and those who were bound to the earth they tilled. The dynastic wars that raged in England during the 12th century, notably the anarchy between King Stephen and Empress Matilda, only served to exacerbate the instability that so defined this period. Villages like Woolpit were not mere bystanders in these conflicts. They were often swept up in the violence of rival factions fighting for control of the throne. The villagers, poor and vulnerable, found themselves caught in the crossfire of battles, the pillaging of castles, and the arbitrary shifting of allegiances as lords and kings waged war for throne. It was a time when loyalties were tested, when the ebb and flow of power could change overnight, and when the common folk, bound by the land and by the forces of nature, could do little but survive. But beyond the feudal obligations and the constant worry of conflict, life in Woolpit had its own rhythm. The village, named after its so-called wolf pits, large, deep traps designed to catch the predators that roamed the woods, was surrounded by thick forests and rich fields. These pits, a grim reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wilds, were often dug by the villagers themselves, who lived in a constant state of vigilance. The countryside was a realm of both beauty and terror. Wolves, boars, and other wild creatures roamed the forests and fields, while the safety of the village was determined by its ability to defend itself and manage the land. The land that they worked was fertile, and the grain fields that stretched out across the rolling hills were the lifeblood of the village. On market days, Woolpit would bustle with activity, as farmers brought their produce to sell, and traders arrived to offer their wares. The village, though small, was a hub of local commerce, where every transaction was vital to survival, and every exchange held the promise of a more comfortable life, even if just for a short while. Life in the village was shaped by an awareness of the fragile balance between man and nature, and the villagers' connection to the land was as much a matter of survival as it was of tradition. Their beliefs, steeped in the lore of the past, were shaped by the rhythms of the seasons, the harvests, and the cycles of life and death that played out year after year. Yet, despite the outward simplicity of their lives, there was an ever-present undercurrent of superstition and fear that ran through the village. This was a world where omens were taken seriously, and where the supernatural was as much a part of daily life as the mundane tasks of farming and trading. In a time when the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural were often blurred, the people of Woolpit were deeply entrenched in a belief system that incorporated both Christianity and the older pagan customs that had existed in the land for centuries. The church, a formidable institution in medieval England, had a profound influence on daily life. Yet the villagers' faith was not just shaped by the words of the priests, but by the rituals and relics that surrounded them. Holy relics, often believed to possess miraculous powers, were cherished possessions, passed down through generations, and carried great spiritual significance. To touch a relic, to hold it in one's hands, was to touch the divine itself, to seek protection or favor from forces that lay far beyond mortal comprehension. Woolpit, like many other medieval villages, was also a place where strange occurrences were commonplace, and where beliefs in omens, curses, and the supernatural were woven into the very fabric of the community. The villagers believed in the power of signs, whether it was a strange celestial event, a mysterious animal appearing in the woods, or an unexplained illness sweeping through the population. These omens, both ominous and benign, were seen as messages from beyond the natural world, messages that needed to be interpreted and acted upon. To ignore an omen was to risk angering the gods or inviting misfortune upon oneself and one's family. But perhaps the most enduring aspect of Woolpit's spiritual landscape was its connection to tales of lands beyond human reach. Legends of hidden realms, mysterious islands, and distant places filled with strange creatures were passed down through the generations. These were the stories that filled the imaginations of the villagers. Stories of realms where the laws of nature did not apply, where the ordinary was turned on its head, and where beings from other worlds could step across the threshold into their own. The villagers of Woolpit, like many medieval folk, were deeply attuned to the idea that the world was far bigger than the small patch of land they tilled and lived upon, and that beyond their own lives, there were vast, mysterious forces at work. Among the most fantastical of the tales that circulated in the village was the legend of the Green Children, whose appearance in Woolpit was said to have been as sudden and strange as the fates that had brought them. These children, who appeared out of nowhere, were said to have a green skin, and they spoke a language that no one could understand. They were often described as having come from a land far removed from the world known to the people of Woolpit, a place beyond the reach of human knowledge. Their story became one of the most famous legends of the village, and it would continue to haunt the memory of Woolpit for generations to come. The presence of these strange children, who arrived without warning, was seen as an omen in itself. Some believed that they were sent by the supernatural to warn the villagers of impending disaster, while others saw them as a sign of a deeper, more mysterious connection between the world of the living and the realm of the unknown. The children, with their green skin and their strange story, represented the very essence of the unknown, a reminder that, in the world of Woolpit, the boundary between the mundane and the supernatural was not always as clear as it seemed. As the legend of the Green Children spread, so too did the stories of other strange occurrences. Tales of strange lights in the sky, of mysterious disappearances, and of people who had seen figures or creatures that should not have existed. These stories, passed down to the generations, became part of the village's folklore, adding to the sense of unease and wonder that permeated the air. For the people of Woolpit, the supernatural was never far from their minds, and the belief that there were forces beyond their understanding shaped the way they viewed their world. In this world of uncertainty and superstition, Woolpit was a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead, the known and the unknown, were constantly shifting. The village was caught in a web of dynastic struggles, feudal obligations, and supernatural beliefs, each thread woven into the fabric of daily life. It was a world where the past and present were intertwined, where the struggles of kings and peasants alike were shaped by forces both natural and supernatural. And in this strange, unsettling world, the village of Woolpit stood as a testament to the enduring power of myth and legend, a place where the ordinary and extraordinary existed side by side, each one feeding off the other in a never-ending dance of mystery and wonder. In the quiet village of Woolpit, nestled in the rolling fields of Suffolk, England, a strange event unfolded during the 12th century, one that would leave an indelible mark on the village's folklore. It was the first days of the Green Children's arrival, and like all events of this nature, it began without warning, without context, and without explanation. There had been no signs, no omens to prepare the villagers for what was to come. They would simply go about their daily lives, tending to their grain fields, managing their markets, and surviving in a world ruled by feudal obligations and the looming presence of the Norman conquerors. When the strange children appeared, the villagers had been working their fields when, in the early hours of a cool morning, two children were found in the woods near the village's wolf pits. The area, known for its deep, treacherous traps designed to catch predators that roamed the forest, had long been a place of dread and mystery for the villagers. Wolves, wild boars, and other dangerous creatures lurked in the shadows of the trees, making it an area where few dared to tread. Yet, there they were, two children, a boy and a girl, standing in the middle of the woods, lost and seemingly out of place. Their clothes were strange, different from what the villagers knew, and they were entirely unfamiliar with the customs and language of Woolpit. At first, the villagers could not make sense of their appearance. The children seemed to be no older than 8 or 9, though their mannerisms and expressions hinted at something older, something beyond their youthful faces. Their skin was of an unnatural green hue, an oddity that only deepened the mystery of their origins. The villagers, bewildered and frightened, gathered around them, unsure of what to do. It was a time when strangers were viewed with suspicion, and any deviation from the norm was met with fear. But these children, with their strange skin and foreign ways, were unlike anything anyone in the village had ever seen. After some moments of confusion, the villagers, despite their fear, decided to take the children in. There was no immediate threat, no weapon to be seen, just two bewildered children, standing silently in front of them. Perhaps, in some strange way, they felt pity for the two who were so clearly out of place. The village, though small and isolated, had its share of kindness, and the villagers, deep down, understood the helplessness of these children who had somehow appeared in their midst. So, they offered them shelter and warmth, bringing them back to the village where they could be cared for. However, the children's strange behavior did not end with their appearance. As the days wore on, it became clear that they were not like the other children in the village. They refused all food except for raw broad beans. The villagers, puzzled by this peculiar request, tried to offer them all manner of food, bread, cheese, meat, and fruits, everything that would be considered a typical meal. But the children would not touch any of it. Their eyes, wide and vacant, would look at the food with what could only be described as confusion, as if they did not recognize what was being offered. Instead, they insisted on eating only the raw broad beans, a food that was so ordinary to villagers but so completely foreign to these children. No one could explain why the children would only eat such an odd thing. Was it a peculiar preference? A strange dietary need? Or was there something darker, more sinister at work? Some of the villagers began to wonder if the children were cursed, sent as a warning from some otherworldly place. Others believed they were somehow blessed, as though the children were divine messengers who had been sent to fulfill some hidden purpose. But no one had any real answers, only speculation and fear. The children's refusal to accept any food but the raw broad beans seemed to indicate a deeper connection to something that was not of this world. Perhaps the children came from a place where only such a simple food was available, a land where no other nourishment could be found. Or perhaps, in their strange silence and otherworldly manner, they were signaling that they were not truly of this world at all. Whatever the case, the children's behavior unsettled the villagers. They could not understand why such a simple thing could hold so much power over children, or why they would refuse the warmth and comfort of food that everyone else enjoyed. Meanwhile, word of the strange children spread beyond the village. News of their arrival reached the chronicles of the time, including the likes of William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall, who recorded the events in their writings. These chroniclers, often tasked with documenting the events of the day for future generations, could not help but be fascinated by the strange tale of the Green Children of Woolpit. The accounts, as preserved by these men, are some of the few surviving records of the event. They described the children in the same way the villagers had, noting their odd appearance, their refusal to speak any language that was understood, and their peculiar preference for raw broad beans. The chroniclers, though they were writing centuries after the event took place, described the children with a sense of awe and mystery. They spoke of the children's green skin as something that set them apart from the rest of the world, marking them as outsiders, as creatures from another land entirely. But they did not delve into the nature of the land from which the children had come. No one could truly say where they were from, only that they had appeared suddenly and without warning, in a way that defied logic or reason. What made this event even more bizarre was the children's inability to communicate. They spoke a language that no one in the village could understand, and they could not understand the villagers' words in return. The children's language was unlike anything heard before, a jumble of sounds and syllables that made no sense to the people of Woolpit. Some believed that the children were from a far-off land, perhaps one that was so distant and isolated that they had no common tongue with those in England. Others thought that the children might have come from some hidden realm, a place outside the reach of human understanding. Whatever the case, the language barrier only added to the sense of mystery and unease that surrounded the children. The village elders, unable to make sense of the children's behavior or origins, resorted to what they knew best, religion. In an age where the church held great sway over every aspect of life, they believed that the children must have been touched by divine or demonic forces. The idea of strange creatures, possibly fae or demonic in nature, entering the human world was not unheard of in medieval England. It was said that the fairies and other magical beings of the time could take on human forms and wander among mortals, either causing mischief or providing help. The villagers, ever superstitious, wondered if the children were part of the supernatural world, caught between the realms of the living and the dead. As the days passed, the children's green skin began to fade, and they started to adjust to life in the village. They eventually learned to speak in the local tongue, though their words were still strange and foreign to the villagers. They told a tale that only deepened the mystery of their origin, claiming to have come from a land known as St. Martin's Land, a place that was unlike any known to the people of Woolpit. They spoke of a land where everything was green, where the sky was always dim, and where the sun never shone as brightly as it did in the world of men. It was a place, they claimed, where they had lived in peace until something went wrong, until they were somehow transported to the world of Woolpit. The villagers, upon hearing this strange tale, could not help but wonder whether the children's story was true. Was this land, St. Martin's Land, a real place, or had the children merely concocted a fantastical story to explain their strange appearance? It was hard to say. From the world of the 12th century, the boundaries between the real and the imagined were often indistinguishable. Stories of faraway lands, magical realms, and hidden worlds were common, and the villagers of Woolpit had heard their fair share of such tales. Still, no one could deny the oddness of the children's presence, their strange green skin, their refusal to eat anything but raw beans, and their mysterious origins. As time went on, the children grew older and adapted to their new life in the village. The boy, whose name was later recorded as Richard, married and integrated himself into the community, though his origins remained a mystery. The girl, whose name was lost to history, disappeared from the village records, and her fate is unknown. Yet the tale of the Green Children of Woolpit would live on in the annals of folklore, a strange, unsettling story that defied explanation and left behind a legacy of wonder and fear. As time passed in the village of Woolpit, the strange children, once so bewildering and alien to the villagers, began to change. Their appearance, which had once been so peculiar, now seemed almost familiar. The green hue of their skin, which had caused such consternation upon their arrival, gradually faded as they adapted to their new environment, though their origins remained shrouded in mystery. Their presence in the village began to feel almost normal, as if the strangeness of their existence had been absorbed by the rhythms of daily life. But despite this outward calm, there was an undercurrent of sorrow, a tragedy that would soon cast a shadow over the strange tale of the Green Children of Woolpit. The younger boy, the one who had arrived with his sister in the strange land of Woolpit, seemed to weaken as the days went on. His initial resilience, which had helped him survive in a world so foreign to him, began to falter. Perhaps it was the shock of their sudden arrival or the harshness of the world they had entered, but the boy's health deteriorated rapidly. His once bright eyes, which had shone with the curiosity of youth, now seemed dull and vacant, as though the very life within him was slowly being drained away. The villagers, who had initially hoped that the children would adapt and thrive, watched with growing concern as the boy became weaker and weaker. He ate only the raw broad beans, as he had always done, but nothing seemed to sustain him. Despite the food and the shelter offered to him, his condition worsened each day. It was a slow decline, one that could not be ignored. The boy's body, once full of life, now seemed to wither away before the eyes of the villagers. The once vibrant green hue of his skin faded even further, turning a sickly pale shade that was almost unrecognizable. His movements became sluggish, and he could no longer stand with the same energy and vigor he once had. The villagers, who had tried to comfort him and care for him as best as they could, found themselves helpless in the face of his suffering. Nothing they did seemed to ease his pain or restore his strength. It was as if something more insidious was at work, something beyond their understanding. The boy, it seemed, was not meant to survive in this world. Days turned into weeks, and the boy's condition only grew worse. The villagers did what they could to offer him comfort, bringing him food and drink, but nothing seemed to help. His refusal to eat anything but the raw broad beans had become a symbol of his strange and alien nature, but it also seemed to be a sign of his stubbornness, of his unwillingness to adapt to the new world he had found himself in. It was as if he had become locked in a world of his own, one that no amount of kindness or care could reach. As the boy grew weaker and weaker, the villagers began to accept the grim reality. There was nothing they could do to save him. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the boy passed away. It was a quiet death, one that came with little fanfare, as though the boy's life had simply been extinguished as easily as a candle flickering out in the darkness. The villagers, who had grown attached to the strange children, were devastated by the loss. They had cared for the boy, offered him their shelter and their food, and yet they had been powerless to stop the inevitable. The boy's death was a tragedy, one that left a hole in the village, a sense of sorrow that lingered long after the event had passed. It was a cruel reminder of the fragility of life, of how easily it could be snuffed out, even for those who had not yet begun to live. The death of the boy was felt deeply by his sister, the girl who had arrived with him. She had watched as he weakened, helpless to do anything but stand by his side. She had been so young, so lost in this strange new world, and yet she had tried, in her own way, to comfort him, to hold on to the bond they had shared. But now she was alone. The boy who had been her only companion, the one person who could understand her in this foreign land, was gone. The girl's grief was palpable, and for a time, she seemed as if she might wither away just as he had. But where the boy had faded, the girl seemed to find a new strength, one that allowed her to adapt to her new life in the village of Woolpit. In the wake of the boy's death, the girl became a different person. Where she had once been silent and withdrawn, she now began to open up. Perhaps it was the tragedy of her brother's death that spurred her on, or perhaps it was the simple necessity of survival in a world that had shown her so little mercy. Whatever the cause, the girl began to learn. She learned the ways of the village, the language of its people, and the customs that defined this new world. It was not an easy process. The language barrier that had once seemed so insurmountable now seemed like a wall that had to be scaled one slow step at a time. But the girl, determined and resilient, found a way. She began to speak the language of the villagers, her once foreign tongue replaced by the sounds of English. At first, her speech was halting and uncertain, but over time, she grew more confident. She would listen carefully to the words of the villagers, try and understand their meanings, and then repeat them slowly at first until she could speak with ease. She learned the names of the plants and animals that surrounded her, the customs of the village, and the ways of the people who had taken her in. Her adaptation was nothing short of miraculous, considering the circumstances. As the girl learned English, she began to communicate more effectively with the villagers. They were fascinated by her ability to adapt so quickly, to pick up their language and their ways with such ease. They began to see her not as a strange, otherworldly creature she had once been, but as a young girl, no different from their own children, who had simply been lost in a world she did not understand. The villagers took her in fully now, seeing her not as an outsider, but as a part of their community. They taught her, cared for her, and slowly, over time, she began to assimilate into their way of life. Yet, despite her progress, the memory of her brother's death lingered with her. The girl never forgot the sorrow of losing him, the pain of seeing him fade away before her eyes. It was a wound that would never fully heal, a scar that would remain with her for the rest of her life. But in the face of this tragedy, the girl found a way to continue. She learned to adapt, to survive, and in doing so, she began to build a life for herself in Woolpit. It was a life that was different from the one she had known, but it was hers nonetheless. She had endured the worst that life would throw at her, and she had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more determined to thrive in this new world. As the years went by, the girl, now fully integrated into the village, lived a life that was far removed from the one she had known in St. Martin's Land, the strange and dim world from which she claimed to have come. The villagers, who had once been so curious and fearful of her, now saw her as one of their own. She had proven herself, not through words, but through her actions, through her ability to adapt and overcome the trials that had been thrust upon her. In the end, the green girl was no longer a stranger in the village of Woolpit. She had found a place for herself, and though her past remained a mystery, her future was hers to shape. But despite all that she had gained, the loss of her brother never fully left her. It was a ghost that would linger in the shadows of her memories, a reminder of how fragile life could be, and how the world could change in an instant. And so, she told her tale of St. Martin's Land, a place where the sun never shone, where twilight ruled the world, and where the people were as strange as the land itself. It was a tale of isolation and peace, of darkness and silence, of a place that no one could truly understand. But as the girl spoke, there was a sense of longing in her voice, a desire to return to the world she had left behind. For despite the strangeness of St. Martin's Land, it had been home to her. It was a world she knew, the world she'd been born into, and it was a part of her that would never fade, no matter how far she traveled from it. The villagers, for their part, listened intently to the girl's tale, their minds struggling to grasp the enormity of her words. They could not understand her world, could not truly comprehend the land from which she had come. But in their hearts, they knew that the girl's story was real, that she had lived in a place beyond their understanding, a place that existed on the edge of reality itself. And so, they accepted her as one of their own, not because they fully understood her, but because they recognized the truth of her existence. She had come from a world unlike theirs, a world that was both strange and familiar, a world that would forever remain a mystery. The tale of St. Martin's Land, as told by the Green Girl of Woolpit, is one that dances between the realms of reality and imagination. It is a story that has intrigued and perplexed those who have heard it, causing a blend of wonder and skepticism to cloud the understanding of what the girl truly meant. Over time, the lines between what is fact and what is myth began to blur, creating a confusion that would echo through generations. Was St. Martin's Land a real place, a distant, unknown world for which the girl had come? Or was it something more, a symbol, an allegory for death, or perhaps a realm beyond the mortal coil, a place not bound by the laws of nature and time? These questions have no easy answers, and the more one delves into the story, the more the nature of the land and the girl herself becomes shrouded in ambiguity. As the story of the Green Children spread, it was recorded by chroniclers like William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall, who preserved the details of the strange occurrence for posterity. These accounts, though historically significant, are often clouded by the passage of time and the inevitable distortion that comes with the retelling of such extraordinary events. What was once a clear and straightforward story of two mysterious children from a far-off land has evolved into a tale that is open to interpretation, leading some to wonder whether the entire narrative is a carefully constructed myth, created over time to explain the unexplainable. Could it be that St. Martin's Land, as described by the girl, was not a tangible place at all, but a metaphor for something else entirely? Perhaps the afterlife, or a dreamlike state between life and death. The idea that St. Martin's Land is not a physical place, but rather an allegory for death or the transition between worlds is not a new one. Many cultures throughout history have used allegorical stories to explain the mysteries of death and the realms beyond. The notion of Twilight realm, where the sun never shines and only a muted, eternal dusk remains, bears a striking resemblance to descriptions of limbo, purgatory, or other transitional states between life and the afterlife. The girl's tale of the strange, green-skinned people who inhabited this land, neither alive nor dead, but suspended in a kind of half-existence, could be seen as a symbolic representation of souls trapped in an in-between state, neither fully in a world of the living nor at peace in the afterlife. The river that divides the land, described as stagnant and dark, could be interpreted as a metaphor for crossing over into death, the murky waters representing the uncertainty and fear that accompanies such a transition. The way the girl describes the geography of St. Martin's Land further adds the suggestion that the place may not be real at all, but a constructed symbol. The lack of clear distinction between night and day, the perpetual twilight that hangs over everything, suggests a liminal state, a place between worlds. The people of St. Martin's Land, with their green skin and otherworldly presence, could be seen as a representation of those who have left the mortal world behind, but are not yet at rest. They're neither fully alive nor fully dead, much like the souls that might wander in a place like limbo. The river that runs through the land, which the girl describes as a boundary separating the known world from the unknown, could symbolize the threshold between life and death, a line that once crossed cannot be undone. The girl's inability to fully explain St. Martin's Land in terms that the villagers could understand only serves to reinforce the idea that this place exists outside the realm of human comprehension. Her descriptions, filled with vague details and impossible landscapes, are disjointed and surreal, as if she is recounting a dream or vision rather than a concrete reality. The muffled sounds, the odd geography, the strange trees and dark river, none of these elements fit into the logic of the world the villagers knew. They are, at best, abstract concepts and at worst, figments of the girl's imagination, or perhaps a subconscious reflection of her own struggles to make sense of the trauma she experienced before arriving in Woolpit. This could suggest that the story of St. Martin's Land is not a factual account of physical place, but creation of the mind, a way for the girl to process her grief, her confusion, and her sense of alienation in a world that was so different from her own. However, there is also the possibility that St. Martin's Land is, in fact, a real place, though one that exists in a way that is entirely beyond the understanding of the villagers. Perhaps it is a parallel world, a dimension that exists alongside the known world, but in a state that is completely different from anything the villagers could perceive. The girl, as an outsider to their world, may have crossed into this place by some unknown means, either by fate, by accident, or through some other supernatural force. In this case, her story could be seen as a reflection of the human desire to understand the mysteries of existence, to explain the unknown through the use of metaphor and narrative. St. Martin's Land may have been a place where the rules of reality were different, where time and space were distorted, and where the people who lived there existed in a state that was simultaneously familiar and alien. The fact that the girl's story has been preserved for so long and continues to captivate the imagination of those who hear it speaks to the power of the myth itself. Myths have a way of transcending the limitations of time and space, offering interpretations of life, death, and the unknown that resonate with people across generations. Whether or not St. Martin's Land is a real place, the story itself has become a part of the folklore of Woolpit, and by extension, the wider world. It is a tale that speaks of fear of the unknown, the terror of death, and the longing for something beyond the mundane world we live in. The story of St. Martin's Land is a timeless allegory for the human condition, and its meanings are as varied and complex as the individuals who choose to interpret it. As time wore on, the line between memory and myth began to blur until it became impossible to distinguish where the truth ended and the story began. The villagers who had once listened to the girl's tale with rapt attention now passed it down as part of their own cultural heritage, interpreting it in ways that suited their own needs and beliefs. Some saw it as a warning, a reminder that there were realms beyond the known world, and that life was fragile, subject to forces that could not be understood. Others saw it as a tale of hope, a story of a girl who had survived in a strange and hostile world, and had come to understand the mysteries of the universe in a way that others could not. The ambiguity of the girl's story is what makes it so enduring, and what allows it to live on in the collective memory of those who hear it. It is a story that does not offer easy answers, but instead invites the listener to explore the possibilities, to question the nature of reality and existence, and to seek their own understanding of the unknown. Whether St. Martin's Land is a real place, an allegory for death, or something else entirely, the story remains a powerful reflection of the human experience. It speaks to the universal desire to understand the mysteries of the world, to make sense of the unknown, and to find meaning in a world that often seems incomprehensible. In the end, the story of St. Martin's Land becomes more than just a tale of a strange, green-skinned girl from a distant land. It becomes a mirror for our own lives, a reminder that there are mysteries we may never fully comprehend, and that the boundaries between the real and the imagined are often more fluid than we think. The girl's tale is not a story that can be easily explained or understood. It is a story that exists in the liminal spaces between reality and myth, between life and death, between the known and the unknown. And it is in these spaces that the true power of the story lies. The tale of the Green Children of Woolpit has long captivated the imaginations of those who encounter it, blending elements of mystery, folklore, and even horror into a narrative that seems both too strange to believe and too compelling to dismiss outright. For centuries, the story has endured, surviving in the minds of chroniclers, historians, and laypeople alike, passed down from one generation to the next. But like most stories born of folklore, the line between truth and fiction has become increasingly blurred, leaving behind only fragments of the original account. Over time, several theories have emerged, each attempting to explain the origins of the Green Children in a more rational, grounded manner, and to demystify what is one of the most enduring and enigmatic episodes in English history. These rational explanations range from the possibility of a simple case of mistaken identity to more elaborate hypotheses involving the potential origin of the children's strange appearance and their seemingly miraculous arrival in Woolpit. One of the most common explanations of the green skin of the children is rooted in biology, specifically a condition known as chlorosis. Chlorosis is a type of anemia that occurs when there is an iron deficiency in the body, and is often characterized by a pale or yellowish complexion. In more severe cases, the skin can take on a greenish tint, especially in individuals who have been malnourished or who have lacked the necessary nutrients to maintain healthy bodily functions. According to this explanation, the children of Woolpit could have been suffering from this condition, their green skin a physical manifestation of an underlying medical issue. The idea of a dietary deficiency fits neatly with the theory that the children came from a distant, isolated community where food was scarce or unbalanced, and the population may not have had access to the same variety of foods that the villagers of Woolpit enjoyed. Chlorosis is not an uncommon condition, and there are historical instances where people with iron deficiency have been described as having greenish-tinged skin. In the case of the Green Children, the theory suggests that their diet, likely consisting mainly of a limited range of foods, could have caused them to suffer from this deficiency. The children's refusal to eat anything but raw broad beans, which they are said to have consumed upon their arrival in Woolpit, would seem to support this theory. Broad beans, while nutritious in some respects, are not rich in a variety of vitamins and minerals required for healthy development, and a diet based solely on beans could have contributed to an iron deficiency in the children. In this sense, their green skin might have been an outward sign of the physical toll that malnutrition had taken on their bodies. If this theory holds any weight, it would suggest that the children's strange appearance was not supernatural, but rather the result of a very real and natural medical condition. The green skin, rather than being a sign of their otherworldly origins, could simply be a symptom of an ailment that was exacerbated by their isolation and their diet. This would also explain their initial reluctance to eat the foods offered to them by the villagers. Perhaps the children's digestive systems were not accustomed to a variety of foods available in Woolpit, and their insistence on consuming only broad beans could be seen as a response to their body's need for specific nutrients. As the children adjusted to their new environment and were able to eat a more varied diet, their health would have improved and their greenish tint would have faded. This medical explanation, while grounded in rationality, does not fully account for all aspects of the story, particularly the mysterious nature of the children's arrival. While their green skin might have been the result of chlorosis, the question remains, where did the children come from, and why were they found in the first place? The explanation that they came from an isolated community offers one possibility, though it is still a matter of speculation. The theory suggests that the children were members of a community that lived in seclusion, perhaps in a remote area far from the nearest town. Such communities have been known to exist throughout history, often cut off from the rest of society by geography, cultural practices, or economic factors. The children's appearance, combined with their strange language and unusual behavior, might have been the result of growing up in an environment that was isolated from the broader world. In this context, the theory that the children became lost and accidentally wandered into Woolpit via underground tunnels or mines seems plausible. During the medieval period, many areas of England were crisscrossed with networks of tunnels, mines, and caves, some of which were used for mining purposes, while others were more natural in origin. It is not inconceivable that the children, in their isolated community, could have somehow become separated from their group and stumbled into one of these underground passages. The fact that they appeared suddenly and without warning could be explained by the idea that they had been lost in these tunnels for some time, their sense of direction and location severely impaired by the darkness and confusion of the underground world. The children, it is said, appeared in Woolpit with no clear explanation of how they got there, and their emergence in the earth could have been a literal manifestation of their long journey through tunnels or caves that led them to the village. One of the most popular supernatural readings of the Green Children's tale is that they came from a fairy realm. The idea of fairies, mischievous and mysterious creatures who exist in a world separate from our own, has been a staple of European folklore for centuries. Fairies were often depicted as beautiful, elusive beings who could be both benevolent and malevolent, depending on the tale. They were said to live in hidden realms, places that were not bound by the same laws of time and space as the human world. In many stories, fairies would occasionally cross over into our world, either by accident or on purpose, bringing with them a sense of wonder and danger. The Green Children, with their strange appearance and otherworldly origins, fit perfectly into this tradition of fairy lore. The fairy realm in which the Green Children supposedly lived was said to be a place that existed outside the normal boundaries of the world. It was a land that was not bound by the same rules of time and space that govern human existence, a world that existed in a state of perpetual twilight. In this realm, the fairies, who were often described as beings who could change their form and blend in with the natural world, would have lived in a landscape that was both familiar and alien. The description of St. Martin's Land, with its eternal dusk, strange geography, and the sense of a world that is both distant and close, mirrors many of the elements associated with fairy realms and folklore. The fairies, according to some versions of the story, are not mere tricksters or magical beings, but representations of something deeper, an embodiment of nature's power, its beauty, and its dangers. In the fairy interpretation, the Green Children themselves are seen as fairy children, born into a realm that is hidden from the human world. Their green skin is not a sign of illness or deformity, but rather an outward manifestation of their otherworldly nature. Just as fairies in folklore were often described as having features that set them apart from mortals, the green skin of the children could be interpreted as a visual marker of their fairy origin. The children's strange behavior, their refusal to eat anything but raw broad beans, and their initial inability to communicate in human language are all qualities that align with fairy lore. Fairy children in many stories were often portrayed as being aloof, detached from the human world, and difficult to understand. They were sometimes even seen as possessing strange and mysterious powers, capable of making mortals fall into deep slumbers or causing them to forget the passage of time. The Green Children's arrival in Woolpit could then be seen as a manifestation of the fairy realm bleeding into human world. Just as fairies were thought to occasionally venture into the mortal realm, the children's sudden and inexplicable appearance could be interpreted as a sign that the boundary between the two worlds had briefly weakened. The children's emergence from the earth, without explanation, fits this theory perfectly. In many fairy tales, mortals who stumble upon fairy worlds or enter them by mistake often find themselves lost in a liminal space, neither fully in one world nor the other. The Green Children, in this interpretation, are simply casualties of that encounter, a reminder that the fairy realm is not a place to be trifled with, and that once one has crossed over, there is no turning back. Another supernatural reading of the Green Children's tale involves the concept of parallel worlds, a theme that has intrigued scholars, philosophers, and storytellers for centuries. The idea of parallel worlds or alternate realities that exist alongside our own is an ancient one and has appeared in various cultures throughout history. In this interpretation, the Green Children are not from a fairy realm, but from an entirely different world, one that exists in a state of flux where time, space, and reality are not fixed. This world, much like the fairy realm, is one that operates outside the boundaries of human understanding, and the children's strange appearance and behavior are the result of their being caught between these two realities. The Green Children are not merely displaced in their own world, but are also symbolic of the cracks that exist between parallel worlds, the places where the natural and supernatural intersect. The Green Children's sudden appearance in Woolpit could then be understood as the accidental crossing over these parallel worlds. They might have come from a world where everything is slightly out of sync with the human world, where the rules of physics and nature do not apply in the same way. The green skin, the strange diet, and the inability to speak the language of the villagers could all be explained as the effects of their having come from a world that is not governed by the same natural laws. The girl's description of St. Martin's Land, with its eternal twilight and distorted geography, suggests a world that is in flux, one where time and space are not linear or predictable. In this interpretation, the Green Children are not merely a strange anomaly, but an embodiment of the mysterious forces that exist between these parallel worlds, forces that humans can barely comprehend. The supernatural readings of the Green Children's tale also invite comparisons to Christian allegory, a theme that has been widely explored in the context of medieval and early modern European folklore. In Christian allegory, stories and symbols are used to represent deeper spiritual truths, often relating to the journey of the soul, the nature of sin and redemption, and the struggle between good and evil. The tale of the Green Children, with its elements of mystery, loss, and transformation, can easily be interpreted through this lens. The Green Children's journey from St. Martin's Land to Woolpit could be seen as a metaphor for the soul's passage through the stages of life and death, and their strange appearance could symbolize a fall from grace or the disorientation that comes with spiritual exile. The girl's description of St. Martin's Land, a place where the sun never shines and everything exists in a state of perpetual twilight, has strong resonances with the concept of purgatory in Christian theology. Purgatory, as conceived by medieval Christianity, was a place of spiritual cleansing, a realm where souls who were not yet ready to enter heaven were kept in a state of limbo. The Green Children, in this interpretation, could be seen as souls who have been caught between two realms, neither fully alive nor fully dead, neither fully in the world of the living nor in the afterlife. Their green skin could symbolize their impurity, a mark of their being in a state of spiritual limbo, neither fully redeemed nor damned. The journey that they undertake, from their strange land to the village of Woolpit, could then be viewed as a metaphor for the soul's journey through the trials of life, seeking redemption and understanding. As the story of the Green Children has been passed down through the generations, it has evolved and shifted, taking on new meanings and interpretations. What may have begun as a simple folk tale, told to explain the strange appearance of two foreign children, has grown into a moral allegory, reshaped over time to reflect the changing values and concerns of society. The tale has been adapted and reinterpreted, woven into the fabric of European folklore and imbued with new layers of meaning. In its early forms, the story may have been viewed as a cautionary tale, warning against the dangers of isolation or the risks of venturing into unknown realms. Over time, however, it has been reshaped into a deeper, more complex narrative, a folk moral tale that reflects the fears and hopes of the people who told it. In this reshaping, the Green Children have come to symbolize not just the mystery of the unknown, but the human capacity to adapt and overcome even the most bizarre and otherworldly challenges. The girl's journey from a strange and alien world to a new life in Woolpit represents a triumph of human resilience, the ability to adapt, learn, and survive even in the face of incomprehensible odds. The green skin, once a sign of otherness, becomes a symbol of transformation, a mark of the girl's journey from alienation to acceptance, from the unknown to the familiar. Thus, the Green Children's tale, once a simple story of strange visitors from a far-off land, has become a rich, multifaceted allegory, one that reflects the complex interplay between mythology, folklore, and the human experience. It is a tale that has evolved over the centuries, shaped by the shifting tides of culture and belief, and one that continues to captivate the imagination of those who encounter it. Whether viewed through the lens of fairy lore, parallel worlds, or Christian allegory, the story of the Green Children of Woolpit remains a testament to the power of myth and the enduring human fascination with the unknown. The story of the Green Children of Woolpit, a tale that has mystified historians, folklorists, and curious minds for centuries, began as a simple entry in historical chronicles, but has since morphed into a legend of mythic proportions. What started as a tale told by medieval chroniclers, with the intention of recording an unusual event for future generations, slowly transformed through the years. As it passed from one storyteller to another, it was woven into the fabric of oral folklore, expanding in scope and intrigue, until it became much more than just a record of two strange children. The evolution of the tale, from a factual chronicle to a fantastical legend, reflect the power of storytelling itself, and the role that chroniclers, as well as the broader public, play in shaping the narratives that define our understanding of history, mystery, and the unknown. The earliest known accounts of the Green Children's appearance in Woolpit come from two of the most prominent chroniclers of the medieval period, William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall. Both men were monks, steeped in the scholarly traditions of the church, and they wrote with the intention of documenting the strange events of their time. Their accounts were not meant to be sensationalist, nor were they intended to create a myth, but rather preserve a curious incident that had occurred in their own lifetimes. William of Newburgh, writing in the late 12th century, recounts the arrival of the Green Children in his Historia Rerum Anglicarum. He states that the children were found in Woolpit, their green skin and strange behavior raising questions that his medieval mind could not easily answer. Similarly, Ralph of Coggeshall, writing a few decades later, provides his own account of the children in his Chronicle Chronicon Anglicanum. Both chroniclers describe the children's bizarre appearance, their unusual diet of raw beans, and their inability to speak the local language. But while the chroniclers were primarily concerned with recording an extraordinary event, their inclusion of such supernatural elements is telling. They did not simply dismiss the story as a local superstition, but rather preserved it, indicating that they found something remarkable in the children's appearance. Both men were, after all, scholars living in a world where belief in the supernatural was commonplace, and they were likely just as fascinated by the Green Children's tale as their readers would be. What is particularly interesting about these early accounts is how the chroniclers blend historical intent with a certain taste for the marvelous. They did not write with the clinical objectivity that we might expect from modern historians. Instead, they acknowledged the mystery of the event and seemed to revel in its strangeness. This blend of historical record and a touch of the fantastical reflects the medieval mindset, where the lines between history, religion, and myth were often blurred. Chroniclers in this period were not simply documenting events. They were creating narratives that would captivate their readers, whether they were monks and cloisters or the common folk who heard the stories through word of mouth. In a world that was often brutal and uncertain, people sought out tales that offered both explanations and a sense of wonder, and the story of the Green Children fulfilled this need in a most compelling way. As the story passed from written records to oral tradition, it began to evolve, expanding beyond the confines of the initial chronicler's accounts. Oral folklore, with its power to embellish and adapt stories to fit the needs of its audience, took hold of the tale, transforming it into something much more than a simple historical anecdote. The core elements of the story, the children's green skin, their strange language, their diet of raw broad beans, and their mysterious origin, remained intact, but the details began to shift, and the tale took on new layers of meaning. The Green Children became not just two lost and confused outsiders, but symbols of otherness, of things that exist outside the realm of human understanding. The setting of Woolpit, a small village in Suffolk, was gradually transformed in the telling. What was once a quiet, ordinary place in England now became a site of extraordinary mystery, a village on the edge of the world, where the supernatural bled into the everyday. As the story spread through generations, the Green Children were no longer simply seen as lost wanderers from an isolated community, but as messengers from another realm, whether that realm was a fairy world, a parallel universe, or the afterlife. The tale took on a life of its own, growing in stature and significance as it passed through the mouths of storytellers. Each retelling added new details, new interpretations, and new meanings. Some versions of the story depicted the children as being sent from a hidden land, a mystical world full of strange creatures and wondrous sights. Others portrayed them as symbols of the fragility of life, representing the lost and the vulnerable, those who are overlooked and forgotten by society. Some versions even hinted at a darker, more ominous presence behind the children's arrival, suggesting that their coming was not an accident, but a deliberate act of the supernatural, a warning to the people of Woolpit. In this way, the tale of the Green Children became a folk moral tale, reshaped and reinterpreted over generations to serve the needs and concerns of different societies. The power of the story lay not in its adherence to fact, but in its ability to resonate with people's fears, hopes, and imaginations. In a time when the world was full of mystery, uncertainty, and danger, the story of the Green Children provided a window into the unknown, a way of grappling with the larger forces of the universe that seemed beyond human comprehension. The Green Children became a metaphor for all that was strange and unknowable, a reminder that the world was full of secrets, some of which were too terrifying to understand. As the centuries passed, the story of the Green Children of Woolpit continued to capture the popular imagination. In the 16th and 17th centuries, when the age of exploration was opening up new corners of the world to European eyes, the tale took on new dimensions. Some saw the Green Children as a metaphor for the unknown lands that explorers were encountering, the distant corners of the earth where strange peoples, animals, and customs awaited discovery. Others linked the tale to the growing interest in the supernatural and the occult, viewing the Green Children as a symbol of otherworldly forces at work, a reflection of humanity's growing awareness of the mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of everyday existence. By the time the story reached the modern era, the Green Children had become firmly entrenched in folklore, a tale that had been transformed and passed down through generations. It had been embellished, expanded, and reimagined countless times until it was no longer just a story of two strange children, but a larger narrative about the nature of mystery, otherness, and the unknown. The tale had grown from a mere historical account into a legend, with layers of meaning that reflected the changing concerns of society throughout the centuries. The tale of the Green Children of Woolpit continues to be told today, often in the context of broader discussions about folklore, mythology, and the role of storytelling in shaping our understanding of the world. In many ways, the story has transcended its origins as a simple historical account, becoming a symbol of the human fascination with the mysterious, the strange, and the unexplained. It speaks to our desire to understand the unknown, to find meaning in the unexplained, and to create stories that help us make sense of a world that often seems beyond our comprehension. Ultimately, the power of the Green Children's story lies not in the fact of their arrival in Woolpit, but in its ability to capture the imagination of those who hear it. It is a tale that has been reshaped over the centuries, shifting from a historical chronicle to a legend that resonates with universal themes of mystery, loss, and transformation. The Green Children, once mere outsiders in a small English village, have become symbols of the unknown, the unknowable, and the timeless power of storytelling to bridge the gap between reality and myth. Through the hands of chroniclers and storytellers, the tale has evolved and endured, continuing to captivate and intrigue new generations of listeners and readers. The Green Children's story is, ultimately, a testament to the enduring power of the human imagination and to the role of folklore in shaping our understanding of the world around us. The story of the Green Children of Woolpit is not an isolated tale. It is part of a larger tradition of folklore and myth that spans across cultures, connecting the stories that have been told and retold throughout human history. The motif of the Green Children, strange beings from a faraway land, crossing the boundary between the known world and an unknown realm, echoes in various myths from around the world. These stories share common themes: the passage between worlds, the mysterious arrival of otherworldly beings, and the blurring of boundaries between life and death. Two particularly notable examples of these shared motifs can be found in Japan's myth of Urashima Taro and Ireland's tale of Tir na Nog, both of which, like the story of the Green Children, explore themes of otherness, transformation, and the mysteries of the unknown. In Japan, the myth of Urashima Taro is a tale that centers around a man who crosses into another world, a world that exists in parallel to the human realm. The story begins with Urashima Taro, a fisherman who, one day, rescues a turtle from a group of children who are tormenting it. In gratitude, the turtle leads Urashima to a magical undersea kingdom. where he meets the beautiful Princess Otoheim. She takes him to her palace, a wondrous place that is hidden beneath the sea, and he spends what seems like a few days there, enjoy her company and the peaceful surroundings. However, when Urashima eventually decides to return to his world, he is given a mysterious box known as a Tamada Bako, with the instruction not to open it. When Urashima Taro returns to the world above the sea, he is shocked to find that everything has changed. The world he once knew has passed by in the blink of an eye, and the people he knew are gone, lost to time. His village, his friends, and even his family have all disappeared, and he is left feeling as though he's been cast adrift in an unfamiliar world. In his despair, he opens the Tamada Bako, and from it, a cloud of smoke emerges, transforming him into an old man. The box, it turns out, contained the very essence of time itself, and by opening it, Urashima has unknowingly released a passage of time that he had been shielded from during his stay in the Undersea Kingdom. The tale of Urashima Taro shares striking similarities with the story of the Green Children of Woolpit, particularly in its exploration of otherworldly realms and the consequences of crossing between worlds. Much like the Green Children, Urashima Taro finds himself in a place that is not bound by the same laws of reality as the human world. He enters a world that exists outside of time, a world where days and years pass differently, and where the rules that govern ordinary life do not apply. The Undersea Kingdom that Urashima visits could easily be compared to St. Martin's Land, the strange Twilight realm described by the Green Children. Both places are detached from the ordinary world, shrouded in mystery, and governed by forces that are beyond the understanding of those who cross into them. Like the Green Children, who are described as strange beings with skin that marks them as different from the people of Woolpit, Urashima Taro also becomes a symbol of transformation, his journey into the underwater kingdom, and the changes he undergoes when he returns to his world, highlight the themes of passage and change that are central to both myths. The transformation that Urashima experiences, his sudden aging and loss of his former life, mirrors the strange metamorphosis that the Green Children undergo as they adjust to life in Woolpit. They are no longer the children they were in St. Martin's Land, but are instead part of a new world, with all the disorientation and loss that comes with it. Their green skin, like Urashima's eventual aging, represents the toll that crossing between realms can take, and the consequences of venturing into places that are not meant for humans. Similarly, Ireland's tale of Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth, presents another story of a character who crosses into an otherworldly realm and experiences a profound transformation as a result. Tir na Nog is a mythical land, often depicted as a beautiful, timeless paradise, where the rules of time do not apply, and where the inhabitants live in eternal youth and happiness. The most famous version of this tale is the story of Oisin, a warrior from the Irish epic The Fenian Cycle, who is taken to Tir na Nog by Niamh, a beautiful woman from the other world. Oisin, who is deeply in love with Niamh, agrees to journey with her to Tir na Nog, leaving behind his family and his world. When they arrive, Oisin is struck by the beauty of the land, a place where there is no sickness, no aging, and no death. He spends what seems like only a few years there, living in bliss and enjoying the peace of the otherworldly realm. However, when Oisin eventually returns to Ireland, he discovers that centuries have passed in the mortal world, and everything he knew has been lost to time. His family is gone, and his beloved homeland is unrecognizable. Just like Urashima Taro, Oisin has stepped into a world where time behaves differently, and his return to the mortal world is marked by a crushing sense of loss. In some versions of the story, Oisin, upon return to Ireland, is shocked to find that his once powerful body has become frail, and he himself is now an old man, despite having remained young and vigorous in Tir na Nog. His experience is a clear parallel to the Green Children's own story, in which they arrive in Woolpit seemingly unmarked by time, only to undergo a gradual transformation as they adapt to the human world. The shared motif between the tale of the Green Children, Urashima Taro, and Oisin's journey to Tir na Nog lies in the crossing between worlds, the distortion of time, and the sense of dislocation that occurs when characters leave their known reality and enter an unfamiliar one. Whether it's a fairy realm, the Undersea Kingdom, or the land of eternal youth, these otherworldly places are not simply magical realms. They are places of transformation, where the laws of the human world no longer apply, and where the boundaries between life and death youth and aging are no longer fixed. The Green Children, like Urashima and Oshin, experience a disorienting passage between worlds, and the effects of this passage are reflected in their physical and emotional states. The Green Children's strange appearance and behavior serve as symbols of this dislocation, marking them as individuals who have stepped outside the ordinary flow of time and reality. Another shared motif between these tales is the role of youth and innocence. The Green Children, like Urashima, Taro, and Oshin, are young and innocent when they first encounter the otherworldly realm. In the case of the Green Children, they are children in both age and spirit, their confusion and disorientation showing the vulnerability of youth when faced with the unknown. Urashima and Oshin, too, are youthful and full of promise when they first cross into the realms they visit, only to be changed by the experiences they undergo. Youth, in these stories, symbolizes potential and possibility, but also the fragility of human existence. Crossing into another world, whether willingly or by chance, leads to a loss of innocence, and the characters in these myths must grapple with the consequences of their decisions. The passage of time, the transformation of the body, and the encounter with forces beyond human control all serve as reminders of the inevitability of change and the limits of human understanding. These tales are not just stories of adventure or escapism. They are deeply rooted in the human experience, reflecting our desire to understand the mysteries of life, death, and the unknown. The shared motif of crossing between worlds resonates with universal themes of transition, transformation, and loss. In the case of the Green Children, their arrival in Woolpit symbolizes the moment when the boundary between the known world and the unknown is breached, and the consequences of that breach are profound and lasting. Just as Urashima and Oshin must confront the passage of time and the loss of their former lives, the Green Children must navigate the disorienting effects of their new reality, all while struggling to understand their place in a world that seems alien to them. Ultimately, the shared motifs between the tale of the Green Children, Japan's Urashima Taro, and Ireland's Tir Nan Nog speak to the timeless human fascination with otherworldly realms and the consequences of crossing into them. These myths, though originating in different cultures and contexts, all explore the nature of transformation, the loss of innocence, and the struggle to understand the forces that shape our lives. Whether in the form of fairy realms, parallel worlds, or eternal youth, these stories remind us of mysterious and unknowable aspects of existence, and the ways in which the human spirit must grapple with the boundaries that separate life from death, the known from the unknown. The Green Children story is part of a larger tapestry of myths that reflect our deepest fears and desires, offering insight into the complex relationship between humanity and the mysterious forces that lie just beyond our understanding. The story of the Green Children of Woolpit has intrigued historians, folklorists, and psychologists alike. It speaks to our deepest, most primal instincts, the desire to explain the inexplicable, to make sense of a world that sometimes seems beyond comprehension. Through the psychological lens, the tale of the Green Children is not just about two strange and enigmatic figures appearing in a small medieval village. It is a reflection of the human need to understand the unknown, to weave narratives that help us navigate the mysteries of life and existence. The psychology behind the belief in such stories, particularly in medieval society, reveals much about the human condition and the way in which myths and legends emerge to fill the gaps of understanding. Medieval society was, by modern standards, both rigid and full of unknowns. The everyday lives of people were defined by a deep sense of religiosity, a strong belief in the supernatural, and an understanding of the world that was shaped by limited knowledge. The medieval mindset was one in which mystery and the unseen played a central role in the way people made sense of their environment. Natural events, diseases, strange occurrences, and unexplained phenomena were often interpreted as signs or omens. The concept of causality was not as clear as it is in the modern world, and many events were seen as a result of divine intervention, demonic activity, or simply forces that could not be understood by the human mind. The need to explain the inexplicable was not only a part of religious thinking, but also a core psychological need. People lived in a world that was full of mystery, a world in which anything could happen, but nothing could be easily explained. The arrival of the Green Children of Woolpit was a perfect example of an event that required an explanation. Their strange appearance, green skin, foreign language, and refusal to eat anything but raw broad beans could not be easily explained within a framework of medieval understanding. People in the village of Woolpit, and indeed throughout England, were confronted with something that did not fit the conventional boundaries of reality, and they struggled to make sense of it. In such a context, it was only natural that a supernatural or mythological explanation would emerge. The human mind, confronted with the unfamiliar, instinctively begins to build a narrative around the unknown, filling in the gaps with stories that provide meaning and order. The Green Children's arrival tapped into a deep psychological need for answers. They were not simply strange, but their very appearance, green skin, carried an almost immediate connotation of otherness. In the medieval mind, green skin was not a sign of illness or injury. It was a marker of something much more profound. In a world where most people were familiar with only the narrow spectrum of human appearance, the color of skin carried significant cultural meaning. Skin color, shape, and appearance were often used as visual cues to identify someone's status, heritage, or even morality. A person with green skin, therefore, would have stood out as not only physically different, but also as someone who did not belong to the world of the living, as defined by those around them. In this sense, the Green Children became ripe for myth-making. Their skin marked them as different, as mysterious beings who had crossed over from another world, a world that was fundamentally separate from the everyday reality of the villagers. In medieval society, the concept of otherness was often tied to fear and fascination. The unknown was feared, but it was also an object of intense curiosity. The human mind is naturally drawn to that which is mysterious. And in the case of the Green Children, their appearance served as a focal point for the imagination. They were not just two lost children from a far-off land. They became symbols of the unknown, beings who represented something outside the scope of ordinary human experience. In a world where most people were bound by the strictures of social and cultural norms, the Green Children embodied a challenge to those norms. Their very presence in Woolpit posed questions about the limits of the known world, about what was possible and what was impossible. They were a disruption of the normal order, and in that disruption lay the seeds for myth. The green skin, in particular, became a symbol that could be easily incorporated into mythological narratives. Green, in medieval symbolism, was often associated with the supernatural and the mystical. It was a color that bridged the gap between the natural world and the world of the fairies, spirits, and otherworldly beings. Fairies, in many medieval legends, were said to have a greenish hue to their skin, which set them apart from humans. The association of green with the supernatural meant that when the Green Children appeared in Woolpit, their color immediately marked them as something other than human. They were not just lost children from a distant village. They were emissaries from a realm outside the human world, creatures from a mystical, liminal space that lay just beyond the grasp of human understanding. The medieval mind, looking for an explanation for their appearance, was naturally drawn to supernatural and mythological explanations. They were not merely children. They were otherworldly beings, heralds of something strange and unexplainable. Psychologically, the Green Children's arrival also served to reinforce the medieval worldview, in which the lines between reality and the supernatural were often indistinct. Medieval people believed that the world was full of spirits, demons, angels, and other creatures that could influence human life in ways that were often mysterious and inexplicable. In this context, the Green Children were not out of place. They were simply part of the wider, unseen world that existed alongside the human realm. This worldview did not separate the natural from the supernatural, and in many ways, the Green Children's presence confirmed the validity of this belief. Their appearance in Woolpit was an affirmation of the idea that the world was full of strange forces waiting to be discovered, and that these forces were not always within human control or understanding. They were an enigma in the human mind, and its quest for meaning was drawn to make them fit into a larger cosmic narrative. In addition to their role as symbols of otherness, the Green Children of Woolpit also reflect the medieval need to explain illness and misfortune. In a time before modern medicine, diseases were often understood as the result of supernatural forces, divine punishment, or evil spirits. The tale of the Green Children of Woolpit, once confined to the pages of medieval chronicles, has found new life in the modern world. Revived through various avenues, pop culture, fantasy novels, and UFO lore, the legend has evolved into something much larger than its original form. The story, originally seen as an odd medieval anecdote, has become a fixture in the imaginations of contemporary audiences, who now look at it through the lens of modern sensibilities, infusing it with new interpretations and meanings. As with many ancient legends, the Green Children of Woolpit have taken on new significance, their story evolving to reflect the concerns and fascinations of the modern age. What was once a tale of mysterious children from a far-off land now functions as a modern myth, one that speaks to our anxieties about the unknown and our desire to make sense of the strange and unexplained forces in the universe. The resurgence of the Green Children in popular culture has been marked by a shift in how the story is interpreted. No longer just a peculiar medieval anecdote, the Green Children have become symbols of otherworldly mystery, their origin now often attributed to alien visitors or travelers from parallel universes. The modern fascination with the supernatural, the unknown, and the unexplained has breathed new life into this age-old tale, offering a fresh perspective on a story that has been passed down through the centuries. What was once a story rooted in medieval mystery now resonates with themes of science fiction, extraterrestrial life, and multiverse theory. The Green Children, in their strange green skin and inexplicable origins, have become the perfect subjects for reinterpretation in the context of modern fears and interests. One of the most prominent ways the Green Children have resurfaced is through the lens of UFO lore. In the modern era, the idea of extraterrestrial life has captured the public imagination, fueled by decades of science fiction, government reports of unidentified flying objects, and the possibility of contact with beings from other worlds. The Green Children's strange arrival in Woolpit, an unexplained phenomenon that defies rational understanding, fits neatly into the UFO narrative. In this interpretation, the children are seen as alien visitors, beings from another planet who have somehow crossed vast distances of space to land in the quiet village of Woolpit. Their green skin, which in medieval times was seen as a mark of their supernatural otherness, is now reinterpreted as a characteristic of alien biology, a visual cue that sets them apart from humans and marks them as beings from another world. The children's refusal to eat anything but raw, broad beings, their strange behavior, and their inability to communicate in human language all fit the profile of typical UFO encounters. Stories of alien visitors often involve beings who are not able to interact easily with humans, who have strange, incomprehensible behaviors, and who seem to exist outside the realm of normal human experience. The Green Children in this context are seen as extraterrestrial beings who, for some unknown reason, were stranded on Earth, perhaps having accidentally landed in the wrong place or being the victims of a malfunction in their spacecraft. Their inability to understand human customs and their reluctance to eat human food suggest that they are not of this world, reinforcing the idea that they are visitors from a distant planet. In addition to the UFO interpretation, the story of the Green Children has also been revived in the context of multiverse theory. The idea that our universe is just one of many parallel universes, each with its own version of reality, has become a popular subject in both scientific speculation and science fiction. The Green Children's tale, with its emphasis on otherworldly realms, distant lands, and strange occurrences, fits perfectly into the multiverse narrative. In this interpretation, the Green Children are not alien visitors from a distant planet, but travelers from a parallel universe, a world that exists alongside our own but operates under different rules of time, space, and reality. According to this interpretation, the Green Children may have accidentally crossed over from their own world into ours, stepping into a reality that they were not prepared for. The green skin, their strange language, and their unfamiliarity with human customs can be seen as the effects of their crossing into a world that operates by a different set of physical and social rules. Their inability to communicate with the villagers and their strange behavior could be the result of the disorientation and confusion that comes with traveling between worlds. Just as in science fiction tales of parallel universes, where individuals from different realities struggle to adapt to the new world they find themselves in, the Green Children's story reflects the challenges of navigating between dimensions. The strange land they came from, described by the girl as St. Martin's Land, could then be seen as a parallel universe, a place that exists in a state of perpetual twilight, where the rules of physics and time are different from our own. In both the UFO and multiverse interpretations, the Green Children are no longer seen as simply strange or foreign, but as symbols of something much more profound. Their story speaks to the human fascination with the unknown and a desire to understand what lies beyond the boundaries of our world. The Green Children's arrival in Woolpit, like many other paranormal encounters, serves as a reminder of the mysteries that still exist in the universe, of the possibility that there are forces, beings, and realities that lie just beyond our comprehension. In a world where the line between reality and fiction is becoming increasingly blurred, the Green Children's tale has evolved from a simple medieval story to a modern myth that resonates with contemporary anxieties about space, time, and the unknown. The resurgence of the Green Children's legend in pop culture and science fiction has not been limited to UFO lore and multiverse theories. The tale has also appeared in fantasy novels, television shows, and movies, where it has been adapted to fit the conventions of modern storytelling. In these adaptations, the Green Children are often portrayed as magical beings, born from a mystical land or another dimension, who possess extraordinary powers and abilities. These versions of the story often emphasize the children's otherworldly nature, their mysterious origins, and the strange circumstances of their arrival. In some retellings, the children are depicted as emissaries from a hidden world, sent to deliver a message or warning to humanity. In others, they are seen as victims of circumstance, lost travelers from a distant land who are caught between two worlds and must struggle to find their place in a world that does not understand them. The Green Children have also made appearances in modern literature, where they have been reimagined as characters who represent the boundaries between different realms of existence. In fantasy novels, they are often portrayed as the offspring of fairies, spirits, or supernatural beings who are sent to the mortal world to carry out a specific task or mission. These stories, like the original legend of the Green Children, tap into the idea that there are forces beyond human understanding, forces that are both beautiful and dangerous, and that the line between the natural and the supernatural is often blurred. The Green Children in these stories embody the themes of transformation, adaptation, and the search for meaning in a world that is constantly shifting and changing. In addition to their resurgence in fantasy fiction, the Green Children of Woolpit have also found their place in modern mythologies, where they are often used as symbols of otherness, alienation, and the fear of the unknown. In a world that is increasingly interconnected, where borders between countries, cultures, and identities are constantly shifting, the Green Children serve as a reminder of the ways in which we deal with difference. They represent the fears and anxieties that arise when we encounter something unfamiliar, something that challenges our assumptions about the world and our place in it. Just as the villagers of Woolpit struggle to understand the Green Children and to make sense of their appearance, modern society often finds itself grappled with the unknown, with new ideas, new people, and new technologies that threaten to disrupt the status quo. The modern resurgence of the Green Children's story, then, is not just a return of forgotten legend. It is a reflection of the ways in which myths and stories evolved to meet the needs of contemporary society. The Green Children, with their green skin and mysterious origins, have become symbols of our desire to understand the unknown, to explore the boundaries between different realities, and to grapple with the mysteries that lie beyond our comprehension. Their tale, like so many other myths, has been reinterpreted and reshaped over time, reflecting the changing concerns, fears, and hopes of the cultures that have told it. And in doing so, the Green Children have transcended their medieval origins, becoming a modern myth that speaks to the timeless human need to explore the mysteries of the world and the universe beyond. The tale of the Green Children of Woolpit, though rooted in the distant past, has managed to leave a significant mark on various forms of art, from illuminated manuscripts of the medieval period to contemporary indie films and video games. The story, which began as a curious historical account, has transcended its origins to become a symbol in the broader artistic landscape. Over the centuries, it has inspired artists, writers, and creators of all kinds who have used the enigmatic tale of the Green Children to explore themes of mystery, otherness, and the unknown. This tale, with its strange and otherworldly elements, continues to captivate the imagination of artists across time, prompting new interpretations that reflect the evolving cultural context in which it is retold. The first and perhaps most significant influence the Green Children's story had on art was during the medieval period, when it was incorporated into illuminated manuscripts. These manuscripts, often created by monks and scribes in monasteries, were rich with illustrations that depicted biblical stories, historical events, and tales of the supernatural. In these manuscripts, the Green Children's story was not just written about, but visualized in intricate, vibrant illustrations that brought the tale to life for medieval audiences. These illuminated depictions were meant to convey both the wonder and the mystery of the story, helping communicate its significance to the largely illiterate population of the time. The images of the Green Children, with their strikingly alien appearance, would have been both unsettling and fascinating to viewers, drawing attention to their otherworldliness and reinforcing the supernatural nature of their arrival. The use of illumination in medieval manuscripts was not just an artistic technique. It was also a way to convey meaning, to underscore the mystical qualities of a story. In the case of the Green Children of Woolpit, artists would have used their illustrations to emphasize the contrast between the children's strange green skin and the ordinary world of the villagers. The children were often depicted in colors that were starkly different from the surrounding environment, their green skin set against the more natural tones of the village, highlighting their status as outsiders, as beings from another realm. These illustrations often depicted the moment of the children's arrival in Woolpit, where they were discovered by the villagers. The dark, mysterious woods in the background, the wide-eyed expressions of children, and the startled faces of the villagers would have all worked together to create an image of wonder and intrigue. These visual depictions in illuminated manuscripts helped to solidify the Green Children's place in the world of art, turning them into enduring symbols of the unknown and the supernatural. The influence of the Green Children's story continued well beyond the medieval period, and as time progressed, the story began to be interpreted in new and different ways. The rise of literary fiction in the 18th and 19th centuries brought with it a new wave of artistic engagement with the tale. Writers and poets, intrigued by the mystery of the Green Children, began to incorporate them into their own works, using the story as a metaphor for themes of alienation, transformation, and the search for identity. These themes resonated with the artistic movements of the time, particularly Romanticism, which sought to explore the supernatural and emotional complexities of the human experience. In this new literary context, the Green Children were not just seen as strange visitors from another world. They became symbols of the otherness that existed within the human psyche, representing the parts of ourselves that are unknown, repressed, or misunderstood. The tale of the Green Children was also embraced by the Surrealist movement in the early 20th century. Surrealists, who sought to explore the unconscious mind and the boundaries between reality and dream, found in the Green Children's story a perfect subject for their work. The strange and dreamlike qualities of the tale, with its focus on alien beings and parallel worlds, provided ample material for Surrealist artists to experiment with. The Green Children, with their unsettling appearance and mysterious origins, became a symbol of the strange and inexplicable forces that lie beneath the surface of human consciousness. In paintings and sculptures, they were often depicted in distorted, exaggerated forms, their green skin and otherworldly features emphasizing their disconnect from the familiar world of the artist. These surrealist works often blurred the line between the real and the imagined, reflecting the psychological dislocation that the Green Children must have felt as they navigated between worlds. The influence of the Green Children of Woolpit has not been limited to the world of fine art. It has also found its place in the world of modern cinema and video games. In the 21st century, the resurgence of interest in folklore, mythology, and the supernatural has led to a renewed fascination with the Green Children's tale, with filmmakers and game developers using it as inspiration for new works of art. The story's themes of otherness, isolation, and transformation are timeless and have resonated strongly with creators of all kinds, who see in the Green Children a way to explore the human experience through the lens of fantasy and horror. In indie films, the Green Children have been reimagined as symbols of the outsider, the misunderstood, and the alien. Their green skin, once a marker of their alien origins, is now often used as a visual metaphor for the way in which society treats those who are different. These films typically portray the Green Children as tragic figures, isolated, confused, and struggling to find a place in a world that is not their own. The otherworldly nature of the children's story allows filmmakers to explore themes of alienation, acceptance, and identity, drawing on the universal human experience of feeling like an outsider. The Green Children in these films are often portrayed as victims of circumstance, their mysterious appearance and behavior a reflection of the larger forces at play in the world. The eerie, dreamlike quality of the original tale is preserved, but is infused with modern sensibility that speaks to contemporary concerns about identity, belonging, and the search for meaning in an increasingly fragmented world. In video games, the Green Children have been incorporated into a variety of genres, from fantasy role-playing games to survival horror. Their story has been adapted to fit the mechanics of these games, where players are tasked with uncovering the mysteries of the world and interacting with strange creatures and supernatural forces. The Green Children in these games often serve as guides or antagonists, their appearance and behavior playing a central role in the plot. In some games, players must work to understand the origins of the Green Children, delving into hidden realms or parallel worlds to uncover the truth behind their arrival. In others, the Green Children are part of a larger narrative about the clash between different worlds, with players navigating between realms and facing the consequences of crossing boundaries that should not be crossed. The symbolism of the Green Children in these games is multifaceted, representing both the dangers of the unknown and the possibility of transformation and discovery. What is striking about the Green Children's resurgence in modern art is how they remained a symbol of the mysterious and the unexplained, even as the cultural context in which they are understood has shifted. Whether in illuminated manuscripts, fantasy novels, or contemporary video games, the Green Children continue to be portrayed as figures who exist on the boundaries between worlds. They are symbols of otherness, of transformation, and of the mysterious forces that shape our understanding of the world. The Green Children, with their strange skin and mysterious origins, embody the human desire to explore the unknown, to understand the forces that lie beyond our comprehension, and to confront the mysteries that continue to haunt our collective consciousness. In the modern world, where the line between fantasy and reality is increasingly difficult to distinguish, the Green Children of Woolpit serve as a reminder of the power of myth and storytelling. Their tale, which began as a simple historical anecdote, has evolved into a rich, multifaceted symbol of the unknown. Through the lens of art, whether in the form of medieval manuscripts, surrealist paintings, indie films, or video games, the Green Children continue to captivate our imaginations, inviting us to confront the mysteries that lie just beyond the reach of our understanding. The resurgence of their story is a testament to the enduring power of myth and the timeless human fascination with the strange, the alien, and the supernatural. The Green Children, in all their otherworldly strangeness, remain as relevant today as they were in the medieval past, a symbol of the power of storytelling to transcend time and space, and to explore the depths of the human experience. The story of the Green Children of Woolpit, as it has traveled through time, remains one of the most enduring and mysterious tales of medieval England. As we reach the conclusion of this exploration, it becomes evident that no final answer exists to fully explain their strange appearance, their sudden arrival, or their true origins. What began as an inexplicable event in a small rural village has evolved into a legend that straddles the line between fact and fantasy, a tale that continues to intrigue, mystify, and captivate the minds of those who encounter it. The allure of the story lies not in a definitive resolution or rational explanation, but in the unresolved mystery itself. The tension between sunlight and shadow, the known and the unknown, and the refusal to simply close the door on questions that continue to linger. To understand the Green Children's tale in its full depth, one must acknowledge that this story does not offer easy answers. The account, recorded by medieval chroniclers like William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall, presents a strange and baffling occurrence that seems to resist the rational explanations of the day. The Green Children, with their odd green skin, their mysterious origins, and their strange behavior, simply do not fit into neat categories of medieval life. Were they extraterrestrial visitors, fairy folk, or simply victims of illness and isolation, the chroniclers, while fascinated by the event, did not seem to consider it as a part of their job to provide a neat explanation for the Green Children's arrival. Instead, they preserved the mystery, documenting the facts without attempting to unravel the deeper significance or origins of the event. This open-ended nature of the story has allowed the Green Children of Woolpit to take on a life of their own, growing into something far beyond a mere historical curiosity. Their tale has transformed into a piece of folklore, reshaped over centuries by the imaginations of storytellers, scholars, and popular culture alike. In this way, the story has taken on an inherently mythical quality, moving fluidly between reality and fantasy. By keeping the tale balanced between fact and wonder, the story of the Green Children has managed to remain relevant, capturing the imaginations of each new generation. The story's power lies in its ability to remain open-ended, inviting new interpretations and theories, while maintaining the mystery that first sparked interest in the medieval period. This is where the beauty of the Green Children's tale lies, in the ambiguity. In many ways, the tale reflects the human experience itself, where the boundary between reality and fantasy is often blurry, where things cannot always be neatly explained or classified. The Green Children, as strange as they were, are not so unlike the unexplained moments of life that we all encounter. They represent the questions, the puzzles, and the mysteries that arise in our lives. Things that seem to defy explanation, yet persist in the collective consciousness. In our desire to understand, we create stories, and through those stories, we try to make sense of the world around us. The Green Children are one such story, a mystery that, no matter how much is analyzed, remains elusive, refusing to be confined to one specific answer. This blending of fact and fantasy is what allows the tale to endure, not just as a historical curiosity, but as a living piece of folklore. Over time, the Green Children story has become a vehicle for the exploration of deeper themes: otherness, transformation, identity, and the unknown. These themes resonate with people across cultures and eras, allowing the story to be interpreted in a variety of ways, each new interpretation reflecting the shifting cultural and psychological concerns of its time. In modern times, the Green Children are often reimagined as alien visitors or travelers from parallel worlds, tapping into contemporary anxieties about space exploration, the possibility of extraterrestrial life, and the nature of reality itself. These new readings demonstrate the enduring power of the story, its ability to adapt and remain relevant, even as it's told in entirely new cultural contexts. The Green Children's tale is an example of how an unexplained event can grow into an enduring legend. It speaks to the power of storytelling and the way in which myths are created and perpetuated, the process by which the story is transformed over time, from a historical account of a strange occurrence to a full-fledged piece of folklore, reflects a broader phenomenon in the way humans understand and interpret the world. When faced with the inexplicable, the human mind is not content to simply leave it unresolved. Instead, we build stories around the mystery, imbuing it with meaning and significance that goes beyond the original event. Over time, these stories become part of the cultural fabric, passed down through generations, reshaped by each new storyteller, and adapting to new social and cultural contexts. Historically, the Green Children's tale serves as a lesson in the power of legend. What began as an isolated event in the village of Woolpit, a curious occurrence that sparked the interest of medieval chroniclers, has grown into a widely known and endlessly fascinating story. The Green Children, whose true origins remain unknown, have become icons of mystery. Their tale is a symbol of the human fascination with the unknown. As their story spread, it became enriched with new details and interpretations, moving further from its historical roots and taking on a life of its own. It is a story that bridges the gap between the real and the imagined, and in doing so, is carved a place for itself in the collective imagination. From a historical standpoint, the tale of the Green Children represents the way in which we attempt to make sense of the world around us. In the medieval period, when knowledge of the natural world was limited, strange events were often attributed to supernatural forces. The Green Children, with their green skin and strange behaviors, fit this mold perfectly, and their arrival in Woolpit was seen as an omen or a sign from another world. This interpretation was typical of the medieval mindset, where unexplained events were often viewed through the lens of religion, magic, and folklore. But even as the centuries passed and knowledge expanded, the Green Children's story remained compelling because it resisted simple explanation. It was a story that could be retold and reshaped, offering new layers of meaning and interpretation. The Green Children's tale also serves as a lesson in the fluid nature of history itself. What may have started as a historical curiosity or an anomaly soon grew into a piece of folklore, with elements that speak to universal human concerns. It is a reminder that history is not a static record of events, but a living, breathing entity that evolves over time. Stories, like the one of the Green Children, grow and change, reflecting the needs, fears, and desires of the people who tell them. The Green Children, in this sense, are not just figures from the past. They are part of an ongoing process of myth-making, an embodiment of the human need to make sense of the world, and to create narratives that help us navigate the unknown. In the modern era, the Green Children story has taken on new significance, reflecting contemporary interests in science fiction, the supernatural, and the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Whether in books, films, or video games, the Green Children have become a symbol of the mysterious, the alien, and the otherworldly. They have been reimagined as visitors from outer space or travelers from parallel universes, tapping into modern anxieties about the unknown. These new interpretations demonstrate the adaptability of the story and its ability to resonate with new generations, each of whom finds their own meaning in the tale. However, the core of the story remains unchanged. At its heart, the Green Children's tale is a mystery, an enigma that defies easy explanation, and it is in this mystery that its power lies. The Green Children are symbols of the unknown, reminders that there are still things in this world that we cannot fully comprehend. Their story asks the question, what happens when we encounter something that does not fit within our understanding of the world? How do we respond to the unknown, the strange, and the alien? The answer, perhaps, lies in the way we tell stories, how we weave together fact and wonder, history and myth, to create narratives that help us make sense of the world and our place within it. In the end, the tale of the Green Children of Woolpit, like so many other myths and legends, remains a work in progress. It is a story that is still being told, still being interpreted, and still inspiring those who encounter it. Whether seen through the lens of medieval history, folklore, or modern science fiction, the story remains a testament to the enduring power of narrative and the human need to explore the mysteries of the unknown. The Green Children, standing on the threshold between sunlight and shadow, continue to captivate our imaginations, reminding us that some questions may never have a final answer, but the quest for meaning and understanding is a journey that never truly ends. The tale of the Green Children of Woolpit has, over the centuries, become shrouded in layers of mystery and myth. While scholars and storytellers have offered their interpretations and speculations, one lingering question remains. Somewhere in Half-Light, does St. Martin's Land still wait? This question, perhaps more than any other aspect of the story, taps into the deepest recesses of a human psyche. It speaks to our fascination with the unknown, with those places that exist just beyond the edge of our understanding, where reality and imagination blur together. St. Martin's Land, as described by the Green Children, is a place of perpetual twilight, a world that is neither fully in the light nor fully in the dark. It is a realm where time and space seem to have no meaning, and where the rules that govern our world no longer apply. In this place, the boundaries between life and death, the known and the unknown, are fluid and shifting. It is a land that exists in a state of liminality, suspended between two realities, waiting for those brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to venture into its depths. The concept of St. Martin's Land as a place that exists in Half-Light, a realm between worlds, has captivated the imaginations of those who hear the Green Children's story. It is a land that, in many ways, symbolizes the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding. Throughout history, humans have looked to the unknown with a mix of fear, awe, and curiosity. From the vastness of space to the depth of the oceans, from the unseen realms of the supernatural to the spaces between life and death, the human desire to understand and explore these unknown territories has driven countless stories and myths. St. Martin's Land, with its mysterious origins and its strange, otherworldly qualities, represents the embodiment of this human fascination. It is a place that exists in the spaces between the known and the unknown, where the rules of reality are suspended, and where the very fabric of existence is flexible and malleable. The Green Children's description of their homeland as a place of twilight, where the sun never fully shines, invites a deeper examination of what such a realm could represent. In many cultures, twilight is a time of transition, a moment when the world is neither fully day nor fully night, a time when the boundaries between light and dark become blurred. Twilight is often associated with mystery, uncertainty, and the unknown. It is a liminal space, a threshold between worlds, where the veil between the living and the dead is said to be thinnest. The idea of a realm that exists in this half-light is not merely a geographical description. It is a metaphor for the unknown, for the spaces between what we know and what we cannot understand. St. Martin's Land, then, is not just a physical location. It is a representation of the human condition itself, caught between life and death, the conscious and the unconscious, the real and the imagined. It is a land that exists in the in-between spaces, waiting to be discovered by those who dare to venture beyond the limits of what is known. The question of whether St. Martin's Land still waits, hidden somewhere in a half-light, taps into the deep-seated human desire to explore the unknown. We are drawn to the idea of places that are off-limits, secret realms that exist just beyond the veil of our everyday experience. Throughout history, myths and legends have been filled with tales of hidden lands, lost worlds, and forbidden realms. These stories speak to our yearning for discovery, for understanding, and for the thrill of venturing into the unknown. The idea that St. Martin's Land still exists, waiting in the shadows, offers a tantalizing possibility, a place that has remained hidden for centuries, waiting for the right person to find it, to cross over into its mysterious world. It is a place that exists outside the boundaries of time and space, waiting for those who are willing to embrace its mysteries and face the dangers that come with crossing into a world that is not meant for humans. But this lingering question, does St. Martin's Land still wait, also speaks to something deeper, something more unsettling. In the tale of the Green Children, the land they describe is not a paradise or a utopia. It is a place that is marked by isolation, confusion, and loss. The Green Children, despite their initial curiosity and wonder about the world they have entered, are forever marked by the trauma of their journey. They are not simply visitors from a distant land. They are strangers in a world that they do not understand, lost and disconnected from the life they once knew. Their green skin, once a sign of vitality, is now a mark of otherness, a symbol of their inability to truly belong. The land they come from, with its perpetual twilight, is not a place of warmth or comfort. It is a place that exists in the space between life and death, where time stands still and nothing is certain. It is a realm that offers no easy answers, no simple resolutions, and no promise of peace. The Green Children's arrival in Woolpit, then, is not just a journey to a new world. It is a journey to a place of profound dislocation, where the rules of existence are upended and nothing makes sense. This sense of dislocation, of being caught between worlds, is at the heart of what makes St. Martin's Land such a compelling and enduring concept. It is a land that exists in a half-light, a place where the boundaries between life and death, reality and fantasy, are blurred. And in this blurring, there is both beauty and danger. The idea that St. Martin's Land still waits, hidden somewhere in a half-light, evokes both a sense of wonder and a sense of dread. It is a place that promises discovery, but also holds a potential for loss. The Green Children, in their strange and otherworldly nature, embody the tension between these two forces, the desire to explore the unknown and the fear of what might be discovered. St. Martin's Land, like many of the great myths and legends of history, is a place of transformation. It is not a destination to be reached, but a journey to be undertaken, one that leads to profound change and a deeper understanding of the mysteries of existence. Yet, for all the questions that surround St. Martin's Land, one thing remains certain. It is a place that continues to captivate the imagination, whether or not it exists in any literal sense. The idea of St. Martin's Land, the land of twilight, of mystery, of crossing between worlds, lives on in the collective consciousness. It is a place that represents a human desire to explore the unknown, to venture into realms that exist just beyond our understanding. It is a place where the rules of our world do not apply, where time and space are fluid, and where the boundaries between life and death, the real and the imagined, are not fixed. In this sense, St. Martin's Land exists as a symbol, a metaphor for the mysteries that lie just beyond our reach. It is a place that speaks to the deepest parts of our psyche, to the longing for discovery and the fear of the unknown, to the tension between the familiar and the strange. As we look back on the story of the Green Children of Woolpit, we are reminded of the power of myth and the enduring appeal of stories that remain unresolved, that resist easy answers. The question of whether St. Martin's Land still waits is a question that will likely never be answered, but it is a question that keeps the legend alive, keeps it vibrant and relevant. It is a question that speaks to our deep need to understand the world around us, to confront the mysteries that lie just beyond our comprehension. And in this way, the tale of the Green Children, with its lingering question, continues to echo through the ages, capturing our imaginations, stirring our curiosity, and reminding us that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, lingering somewhere in a half-light, waiting for the next generation to ask the question again. Once again, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so we have more